All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is just a little after 10, but we'll go ahead and get started. We have, I'd like to welcome each and every one here. We have, tell you what, let's just go around the tables, and since we got the City of Nelson, Jasper, and Talking Rock here, and Pickens County, we'll just introduce ourselves for the cameras. Phil, Randy, you want to start with, on that end? We'll just work our way clockwise.
My name's Phil Landry, attorney for Pickens County.
Brandy Edwards, City Clerk of Nelson.
John Faust, Councilman of Jasper.
John Weaver, Mayor Jasper.
Peter Cable, Mayor of Crossing Rock. Jerry Barnes, District 1 Commissioner.
Rob Jones, Board Chairman, Pickens County.
Becky Denny, District 2 Commissioner.
Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all being here. This is more or less an introduction to what we're fixing to get started, which is the new SPLOST of 2014. Has everybody got an agenda before we get started? Y'all get an agenda on the table? Let me step out.
Here's,
Pardon?
excuse me.
Everybody? All right. And as I think in the last minute, Mayor Havlin come in from City of Nelson. Mayor, it's good to have you here. Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our attorney, Phil Landry, for an overview and explanation of the Georgia laws regarding SPLOST.
As y'all know, the county is planning on the current sales tax that we're under, the current ballot that we're under, which levies the sales tax will expire next year. And we're planning on issuing, the Georgia law requires us to have a meeting with, the commissioners to have a meeting with the cities in hopes that there can be an intergovernmental agreement developed which will specify how the sales tax is to be used. If an agreement cannot be reached, then the sales tax will be distributed according to a prorated share based on the population, based on the 2010 census. If we do get an intergovernmental agreement, we can expand the period of collection from up to 6 years. The other advantage is that there's no cap on collections. The ballot will specify how much tax we anticipate collecting. If we don't have an intergovernmental agreement and we reach that level, we have to stop collecting taxes. If we do have an intergovernmental agreement and we specify that, and if we exceed it, we're allowed to continue on until the ballot expires.
Anybody have any further questions on that particular issue?
Crystal clear.
All right. That brings us down to item number 3, the expected amount of revenues that could be collected. If it is a 5-year ballot, we could expect to collect somewhere around $22,597,000. If it's a 6-year ballot and we got an intergovernmental agreement, we could collect at least $27,514. And as Mr. Landon said, it could run over, and there's no cap. The 5-year does have a cap. So then that brings us down to item number 4. The importance of intergovernmental agreements between the counties and cities, and I'm going to turn it back over to Phil. You want to explain that?
As I said, we have the potential of getting an extra year of collection. We also have the ability for the county and the cities to work together for a common project to be distributed in that. You also avoid the cap, as I mentioned earlier. With regards to the numbers that Mr. Jones just put out, those are based on a growth factor that Ms. Harvey has looked at by looking at the past 3 years, and we're applying a percentage of 2.88. That may change as we go forward with this. We're using that as a conservative estimate. If we don't have an intergovernmental agreement, we may not be as conservative to avoid the cap, avoid having to stop collecting the tax because of the cap. But we still have to be accurate with it because we don't want to list projects that we don't have the money to fund. I guess this is two projects that y'all want to fund.
This will bring us to item number 5, discussion of potential projects and proposed amounts. This is the first meeting. This can be the only meeting we want. This can also be the first meeting. We can have 1 or 2 more if we so desire, before the March And I think this election's coming up first Tuesday in March. I believe is when this election would be held. But there's no reason to think that we can't not have another meeting after this. Other than that, by law, this can be the only meeting that we have, so it can be either or. So that brings us down to item number 5, discussion of potential projects and proposed amounts. With Nelson and Topping Rock, I don't think, since the population does not exceed,
But for the intergovernmental agreement to be valid, there's the law specifies the population percentage of the cities that have to be involved in it. And for our purposes, for any intergovernmental agreement to be valid, the City of Jasper must be a party to it. It does not matter if Topping Rock and Nelson formed an intergovernmental agreement with Pickens County, but that would be valid. The City of Jasper must be a party to it. The other point is, the law talks about Tier 1 and Tier 2 capital improvements. I'm not really talking about that because I think everybody understands that we have no Tier 1 capital improvements on the horizon, at least from the county standpoint. I don't know that it would be from any of the cities, but because of that, everything pretty much would fall into Tier 2. And the way I understand it, if there is no intergovernmental agreement, the first 20% of collections, the county could take off the top for their Tier 2 improvements, and then the balance is distributed according to populations. Of course, if there's an intergovernmental agreement, y'all can agree on whatever you want to with regards to how things are distributed, which gets funded first. But we don't have a Tier 1 project on this horizon, which would, of course, demand that it be funded first, similar to what the courthouse is. So everything's pretty much in the Tier 2 category.
any other questions to that as we go along? Yeah.
You might want to inform them as to what SPLOST cannot be used for.
It's basically used for capital improvements, things that you can book on your accounting, that your accounting can book as capital improvements, cannot go toward maintenance or operations. And that's one of the drawbacks. It allows you to build a fire station, but it doesn't allow you to pay the salaries of the people that are housed in the fire station. So that's just an example of one of the disadvantages of it. Salaries, but for example, if you were using your sales tax for road improvements, even if it was a county employee doing the road improvement or a city employee, you would be able to pay their salary and benefits out of the sales tax proceeds if they were working on, as long as you can show that they were working on a project authorized by them. So even though I do say that it can be used for wages, it can be to an extent, but only to the extent that those county or city employees are working on SPLOST projects.
All right. That brings us down to item 5, I believe, for what we want to do for projects. The discussion of potential projects and the proposed amounts. Since Jasper is the biggest city that we have in the county, I'm going to open the floor to the city of Jasper. Y'all got any, what do you want to do with the money? What do y'all recommend, suggest?
I'd like to defer to the mayors of Nelson and Talking Rock to let them be part of this. Mayor, if you would you join around the table since you are the mayor? And we come to you today with some plans that are not only for our cities, but as well as concerns that we have for the county. And I'd like to recognize Mayor Howland. If you would, please, sir, address some of your issues with Nelson and what you perceive would be a benefit from the SPLOST. As your city is split between Cherokee and Pickens, how do you see this unfolding over the next 4 or 5 years, depending on if we get an intergovernmental agreement, how it's going to benefit Nelson?
Well, the benchmark that we have is we already have an agreement with Cherokee County. So we have some precedent there. And essentially what we're doing is we have an allocation. All of the cities in Cherokee County get an allocation as is indicated based on the population. I think one of the interests from Nelson, and feel free to correct me, Brandy, would be that we would like to be able to have a sense of confidence that there was a revenue stream that would be coming in 5 or 6 years, whichever we end up resolving is the direction you're going to go. But that would be fairly predictable, that we could use in our capital improvement program for the city of Nelson.
Well, have you got your capital improvement plan kind of specified on what you want to do? And you probably want to keep this in general terms, don't specify certain projects. But
Yeah, we just prepared for the first time our first capital improvement program, so we do have some specific things. Although, actually, currently, our relationship with Cherokee County, again, using as a benchmark, has 3 very, very broad categories, which I researched. They're all within the document. We could apply that. And I think that's kind of a question that we would not want to be specific unless we had gone back to the city council and there was agreement as to what those projects might be. But short of that, I still think we would want to, again, use this notion of the population issue as a benchmark, as a tool to try to see a revenue stream that would come into the city of Nelson that we could build projects with. And again, I use the word certainty, and nothing's certain, but it does give you the ability to plan your capital improvements in a much more effective way to tie them together. I think the other 2 issues that I see, just generally, I know there's been some discussion that I heard when we did the comprehensive 5-year work program for the comprehensive plan, and Mayor Weaver had a suggestion and began some discussion about a notion of commitment to roads and streets in the county. And that, to me, would be separate from an allocation that we would, from our population of each of the cities. But it could be something that we might all agree to at a countywide level, that was a priority that we wanted to commit to. The other issue that I see is that, and again, I don't bring any history to this, so I feel free to correct me on this, but as I understand, we really, the city's position was, in this initial round of the SPLOST, was evolved into a Tier 1 project, and the city's really basically stepped aside to accomplish that. And I don't know if we get to make it back up again some point, but that's what sort of lurks in my mind. Is there do we deserve a little different look at it? And obviously there's flexibility. You don't have to use population entirely in our agreement. Whatever we would agree to, you could do. But again, I don't have any history. I don't really know what that was all about, but I know we're not seeing funds coming in at the
we haven't got into the phase 2 part of this last
okay,
one.
yeah. So, well, I think just to summarize, our position was we would be very interested to cooperate with the county on whatever issues that you might have that you think we should focus on a countywide basis, and then as a city point, from our own, I guess, self-interest, we would like to pursue this population issue as a means to take a cut out of those funds, to have some consistency, that we could look ahead in our capital improvements program and begin to build the projects that we define we want to do over the next few years. Randy, would you add anything to that? Okay.
Mr. Barnes or Ms. Denny, y'all have anything to ask for the City of Nelson?
How does that work with Cherokee County? Do you give them your projects that you want to do, and
Right, yes.
then money comes in as you're completing the project?
No, ma'am. The money comes in every month. We get monthly checks, and we're on our 4th SPLOST with Cherokee County.
And do they use the population formula? Is that, or
I'm not really for sure, but I do have all I don't know how they came up with it. I probably could figure it out really fast, but we each have a percentage, each city, which there's 7 cities in the county, so.
What is your percentage, you know?
0.45.
0.45.
Yeah, Ball Grounds is 1.29, Canton's is 10.815, Holly Springs is 4.197.
Okay, they're going by population.
Yeah.
Can I throw out some figures that, based on the 2010 census, these are the figures that we're kind of operating on. If anybody got an issue with it, I guess now's the time to deal with it. I know the law does not specify that we use the census, but I think we use the census figures and it's easily defended. We're showing Jasper at 12.52%, population 3684. Nelson at 2.43% at 715, Talking Rock at 0.22% at 64, Pickens at 84.84% at 24,968, with the total population being 29,430. Does that sound about right to everybody? The other thing, just to give consensus on, is I realize that you may think that 2.88 growth factor is conservative, and I've realized that in the last few years, we've had a recession hit. Just for purposes of our conversation, maybe use that to project what our collections would be. We can go back and revise it later, but just for this conversation, it seems to be a fair jumping off point, I would think. But if y'all disagree with it,
May I address that just for a moment? It'd be a great time instead of waiting at the end. Pete, if you don't mind. I think we need to consider the city of Jasper. We only have three cities in Pickens County, where Cherokee, I think you had said 7.
Mhm.
And I won't get into the mayor's earlier suggestion that we won't worry about the last 2 SPLOST, that any of the cities didn't get any funding. But we in the city of Jasper have spent tremendous amounts of revenue and energy trying to build infrastructure to allow and accommodate for business. And I see nowhere on the formula that a business, which usually pays more taxes than a single family residence, many times more, have been neglected. And the neglection comes from the fact that we have borrowed a considerable amount of money over the years for infrastructure, for water and sewer, and have neglected the roads in Jasper to a point where we're at the point where we can't go any further. And the state has pretty much dried up as far as a funding source for our roads in the city, especially city the size of Jasper, even though we do have the commercial capabilities that we have. But we received this year $40,000 worth of revenue from LMIG, is the new term for what used to be LARP. But we cannot keep up with the present deterioration of our roads at $40,000 a year. And if you look around the cities and the counties, most of the road surface that you see is not out of our local tax dollars. It's out of money that was sent to the state, and they sent it back to us for surface and resurfacing and building of roads. So I want to beg this commission that we look more toward the absolute necessity of Jasper, Nelson, Talking Rock, and all of Pickens County, and that we cannot look other than our transportation problems. Even though we all have debt, the city of Jasper has $7 million of debt. We're about to go $2 million more for wastewater treatment improvements, so that's going to be a total of $9 million within a year. And we'd like to address those debts with SPLOST, but I think transportation supersedes our need to alleviate our debt. We will continue on with water and sewer revenues, trying to maintain those, but if we neglect the roads in Jasper, and I'll let Nelson and Talking Rock speak for themselves and their road needs, and I'll let the Commissioner speak for the needs of the county, but the city of Jasper has not had a significant road paving project in many years. The last LMIG that we received, we paved the road from 515 past Quick Trip down to the county jail. The project before that was a little paving on Cellar Street, East Cellar Street, not even considering West Cellar Street. And this year, like I said, they sent us $40,000, and the best I can use that money for is patching the roads that are absolutely falling apart. So I am here today as the mayor of Jasper and jumping in front of the mayor of Talking Rock already, since brought this up. We've got to look at the commercial aspect because we can't continue eating the goose, and I consider the city of Jasper's commercial districts the goose that lays the golden eggs. And I've got subdivisions such as Arbor Hills and areas around Moore Street, south of Jasper, that absolutely falling apart. And I know the county has, I rode around the roads, Wildwood subdivisions, Hunter's Ridge, all these roads where these people are paying taxes, not only property taxes, but they're buying inside the corporate limits as well as the county. And they need to have their roads resurfaced within the next 6 years if we can reach an agreement. And we can sit here and posture and decide who deserves and what deserves, but we're all inside the corporate limits of Pickens County, whether we're a city of Jasper or a city of Nelson or Talking Rock or the community of Hinton or wherever. We got to look at the big picture, and I think Jasper's roads are as bad as anyone's because we have more traffic in a single day, whether you're on Burnt Mountain Road or whether you're on Hood Road or whether you're on Main Street or whether you're on 53, which we'll let the state worry about that. But we have 37 miles in the city of Jasper, taking away 515 and State Route 53, that a few of the roads were paved with money that we came up with a few years ago, and the commissioner helped us pave those roads with city crews. Those are the only good roads I have inside the city of Jasper presently. The rest of them are alligatoring, they're potholing, breaking up to the point where if we don't take care of these roads over the next 6 years with an intergovernmental agreement, we're going to all look back and think, what did we do to our community if we don't take care of this? So I'd like for you to consider that, Commission, and when you move forward, and that's what I beg for here on behalf of the Jasper City Council and the citizens of Jasper and all of Pickens County.
Thanks, John. Mayor. Jerry, you're, Ms. Becky, got anything you'd like to ask?
I agree with you, there's some rough roads out here. So, just a comment here.
Pete, Mayor Talking Rock?
I concur with what the other two mayors have just said. I think the road should be a priority. And Talking Rock, we don't have all that many roads. We got, I think, 3.
Sometimes that's a blessing.
Well, yes. Depending on how you look at it. We got 3 town roads. The main road is the state highway, 136. That's our main street. The state takes care of that. What little money we get from SPLOST is because of our population, really doesn't help us out a whole lot. And the county has helped us out in the past with fixing roads, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. We're all trying to, as the mayor of Jasper had expressed earlier, we're all trying to work this thing together. And contrary to popular belief, we are citizens of Pickens County, whether you live in the city or out in the county. We all need to pitch in together to help try to get through these tough times, because as me and the mayor of Jasper has fought, and I use that term not very loosely, but it has been a fight with DOT and with what we're having to deal with Northwest Georgia RC on a few items and with DCA to get what little money we get back for what we invest here out of Pickens County, being a Tier 4 county, leaves us hanging out to dry on a lot of things. I mean, I'm just, Pickens County, for instance, we're just getting $360,000 this year from DOT, and they have told me and the mayor of Jasper both that we're going to get less next year. So it's only recourse, and me and the mayor and all of us have talked in one time fashion that roads have got to be a top priority. Now, and I don't think, surely there wouldn't be many citizens out here that would dispute that claim. The mileage that you had, your 37 miles, is that pretty accurate on what you've got?
Yes, sir.
As we measured this morning.
Well, I've already measured it, and then I went back on one of the computer programs and measured it with a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes to 51.78 miles. That includes 515 East and West Church Street.
Yeah.
You subtract that, it leaves 37.36 miles inside the city limits.
All right.
Excuse
Pardon?
me. Can I ask how many miles you have? You have,
I think if you put all 3 streets together, end to end, it'd come out to about a half to 3/4 of a mile.
I do know, but I can get back with you on it.
Okay.
The numbers completely wrong.
Joy, don't we have that on the mileage of Talking Rock and Nelson?
It's just over a mile on Talking Rock.
Over now, okay.
I don't remember the exact
I think I
figure,
said that.
but, I mean, it's so close to a mile, it's not funny.
Yeah.
Nelson, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, as the mayor of Jasper, Johnny has, if we can make this a little
You
informal,
call me
guys.
AU if you want to.
The, as myself and Johnny have talked, of course, we're relying on the state, because, you know, I've got 53, 136, he's got 53, he's got, you got part of 108? I don't think you got part of 108. But yeah, you do,
Just-
you got
just-
515.
just-
But normally 515, 50, all the state highways are supposed to be maintained by the state, and we are stuck with that issue there. That being said, I'm just going, while we're talking, Pete, have you got anything else you want to bring
No,
in?
no, no.
We're, as you know, the county would like to focus on roads also. And hopefully we can have another meeting as we all finalize our numbers, give you all time to really tweak in your road mileage, if you'd like, and if y'all want to double check and verify everything.
Commissioner, may I interrupt?
Sure.
Before you start your present, we close it, or whatever you intend to do here, I just want to throw one more project in that's near and dear, I think, to Miss Deanie and a few other people, and this is something that I wanted to mention and just get it out in the forefront. When you enter Pickens County, from the south side, Cherokee coming north, if you think about it, if you left Miami, Florida, and followed the interstate systems and hit 575, the first traffic light you see is 108. And it's not the first road that's does not have an overpass or overpass, basically from Miami, Florida, till you reach 108 Jasper. Because if you think about it, you can travel that far without hitting the light. And that's quite an abrupt feeling if you've driven that far, and all of a sudden you're still on a 4-lane, but all of a sudden you got crossovers gone, and you have XL, decel lanes, and you have a very dangerous situation. And there's no way to change that because the state's not going to come in and build an overpass. And we've talked many times about a gateway projects for Pickens County, which still stays within the transportation project. But we need to do something at the county line, and definitely in the city limits where you reach Polecat Creek, basically where Sackets is, and Racetrack South, all the way to Antioch Church Road on 515, and then you enter back into the unincorporated Pickens County till you leave and enter into Gilmer County. And we've all known of the traffic issues on those roads because of high speeds and people trying to enter roads. It's almost like a rabbit running across the road, and you feel like you're crossing one of those, especially at night or whatever the case may be. But I think we need to look also if there's any funding available that we could do a gateway project with this, where when you enter Pickens County, we could work with the DOT, hopefully if they're watching this, and instead of putting up those Vegematics that you have in Cherokee County where you cut people in two when you hit one of those crosswalks, we could actually have a tree planting project as well as street lights that when you know you're entering into an area that does not have overpass, you're entering into a city and a county that's actually you can access right off 515 to go to any business that's building that property. I think we need to look at this really close as something that we can work with, where we can have a traffic street light every 1,000 feet or so from county line to county line, and we could dress up the City of Jasper a certain way with trees, etc. That we could make Pickens County in Jasper, Georgia look a little more special than what you see on a typical 4-lane road. And I think that would pay dividends for economic development, which I don't want to get into economic development with transportation, but this very much could enhance. And I don't think it'd be that expensive a project, planting trees and doing a plan to plant trees as well, and bushes and whatever else that would prevent one vehicle from crossing over the lane if they were to lose control. But of course, all this would have to be approved, but I still would very much think this would be something that I'd like to have on the table today, that we could actually, each of the intersection 108 and 53 and Philadelphia Road, all the major arteries that goes across 515 could be improved to the point through our SPLOST, as well as paving our roads, that we could really attract a total different prospect to Pickens County through our efforts in economic development. Just don't want to throw economic development on top of transportation, but transportation is where this is really at.
Have you got any pricing? Do you have the ability to do any pricing to that effect?
Plan to get those numbers if we pursue this, but I think that would be something that we can have in the near future within a ballpark range without doing bidding process.
if you could pull some, I mean, I'm sure this group here would be glad to, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I'd just like to compliment what he's saying, and I very much agree. I think, I don't know what it would be lighting or if it was planning, but I think the objective of trying to create something that differentiates Pickens County and is an entrance to this new place you come to, which is Pickens County. It really begin to brand and tell a story about now you're entering Pickens County. Again, I don't know if it would be lighting or I can reasonably see landscaping for sure. And there's a lot of different solutions you might come to it, but I very much support what he's saying. I think it's a very, very good
An
idea.
example of this is when you travel 16 from Macon to Savannah, you pass Dublin, and all of a sudden you want to slow down because you see these street lights ahead in the middle of the road. Now, the state's not going to tell you can't do it, but I know for a fact they have them there, and it's a very attractive, a slow down area because you know there's got to be some police officer somewhere with radar on you because you're in an area that has congestion on 16, and of course they still have overpass on I-16, but Mayor, didn't mean to interrupt, but that give you some idea, and of course we want to put a lot more vegetation in, and since the city happens to own 1,300 trees, if we never get them moved and planted, that'd be a great location for that, and of course that wouldn't be any cost to our SPLOST.
And you with Georgia Power sitting on your city council can donate all these
I'm
lights.
sure they won't donate, don't worry about
We
it.
can work something out on that. Not that I want to throw John under the bus, this John. I think it'd be a great idea. I think we need to get some numbers together. Maintenance, of course, is going to be a big issue. Paying the power bill would be a big issue, how that's going to be derived, because your SPLOST does not pay for the power bill or does pay for the maintenance of these items. So I think those numbers need to be brought out also. But I think it's a great idea and light these intersections up. Of course, the most great idea is just put overpasses in if we can keep people from doing that. But it is what it is, and we have to deal with what we've got, what's laid in front of us. Yes, Mike?
One thing I'd like to introduce to both of you, and that is that this is SPLOST money. It's for capital improvements. And if we move forward in an aggressive way to say do roads, the county and or Jasper or however, you need to be comfortable that you have the maintenance and operation money to match that. In other words, because you can't use that money to pay for the people to build the roads or to repave the road. So I mean, it's one thing to think this is a big list of things we want to do, but you've always got to build back in. Do I have the ability to support these projects that we've chosen? So I just throw that out there.
Well, you're going to wind up doing like they've got down in Cherokee County and some other counties, like the mayor has brought out before. You're going to have to look at it, even though it is a good idea and it sounds great, your maintenance issues,
Right.
or you're going to have to deal with the dark skies ordinance, and most of us know what dark skies ordinance is, and traffic light, which I think Georgia Power has dealt with quite a few of those in the past. So it's nothing impossible, and I think it'd be a great idea if we could pull it out if the money's going to be there. Pete, you got anything?
Nothing more than that, what we already said is just the roads.
Mhm.
We got, we got one road, gonna need maintenance here pretty soon.
How much money did you get, may I ask how much money did you get from the state this time? Or did it cost them too much to mail you a check?
I think you said a couple $1,000.
I think it was about $1,200.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and let you know what we're looking at, and like I said, these are all plans in the works. Roads, I agree 100%, roads has got to be the biggest issue for the county. I'm kind of looking at our road mileage to see what we can do and what the price of that can be to do every road there. As most of y'all know, as of January 1st, the DOT along with EPD has passed it that I can't, or a county or city cannot pave any dirt road now until we do an environmental study. So that has fallen on us, and as we've got about 380 some odd miles in Pickens County, somewhere thereabout, and I've got about 107 miles of dirt roads left that, believe it or not, a lot of people don't want their dirt roads paved, but there is some that do. But the item that we have to have an environmental study now before we can even start paving a dirt road is kind of putting salt on the wound on those issues, so that's really run the cost of. Another thing that we've been experiencing in the last 6 months is fire protection. City of Jasper, Nelson, and Talking Rock have been blessed to the fact that they've got their areas covered with fire protection. We have, with the new regulations that insurance companies are using now, they are going strictly by the 5-mile radius. So anything at the 5-mile radius where a fire station is at, ISO rate.
5 road miles.
5 road miles, I'm sorry, is causing everybody's, that live outside those cities to be a 9 or a 10. So I think the citizens outside these areas would like to see something done on fire protection in those areas, and we have got a somewhat plan on that one. Water's not, I mean, it's high priority, but it's not, I don't think, the high priority in these areas here. We've done well in the last 7 years, 8 years, getting water dispersed and around as best we could, and I think we can probably coast a little bit on that if need be. But the library is another item that not only benefits Pickens County and the kids here, but also City of Jasper, Nelson, and Talking Rock, and plus the school system for the kids. What we're experiencing is a lot of the children do not have computer capability at their houses, and they rely on the library to do that. Just one item that needs to be done to increase the library and what they offer, and I would like to see. And we tried to on the last SPLOST have a library on there, of course, with the economy going tanked. It is what it is, but library being in Jasper, extenuating to that building, adding on and bringing more facilities would help, I think, with that part. Those are just 3.5 items. I'm gonna put water as a half, but 3.5 items that we get out there. But roads, I agree with the consensus here, have got to be the top priority. So if I would like, we don't want to stay here all morning, but I'd like to have another meeting whenever y'all think, or at least me and Mayor Jasper get our numbers together and finalize on the road mileage and see if we can work out some percentages, and maybe we can sit down as a group and again, next few months down the road and tweak this on in. You've got the agenda. It has got the pricing or what we think we're going to be able to collect over a 5 and 6 year period. The intergovernmental agreement would be the way to go, in my opinion, if we can work out a deal with the cities to the fact that even though it's showing an X amount of dollars, it's not capped. So that means if we collect 27 million in 5 years, we can go another year, and then the percentages will still be diversed out between the cities. So I'm sure everybody understands how that operates.
May I touch on your last statement?
Sure.
With our intergovernmental agreement and the conversation that we had today, and based on population, we can't live based on population. The City of Jasper can. I'd like to look at, and you're thinking, and how this for the media as well, is I want to look at car population as far as transportation. I mean, we have more vehicles under the traffic light on 53 and Main Street, and I want you to keep this in the back of your mind as the Pickens County, Jasper, Georgia, still is inside the corporate limits. And I look at all the commissioners when I say this, that we've got to pave our roads. Every road that we have is alligatoring, and we've got to think along those bases, because those roads are in the corporate limits of Pickens County, and they've been neglected by the state, the city, the county for too long. So if you will keep that in mind, and let's get away from us trying to posture on population, because I'll put the little lines up and show you how many cars leave Burnt Mountain, try to come up Burnt Mountain Road, and they don't hit potholes until they hit the City of Jasper. So let's keep that in mind, and I think we can come up with something that'll make all the citizens happy, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to look at that camera and look at that newspaper and say, this is a good project, this is one worth voting for, and we don't need to barely pass by 12 votes or 15 votes. This needs to be an overwhelming vote by all of Pickens County. And hardly anyone would vote against it. So if we can reach a consensus and show the people that we're working together to make this happen, and I think it'd be a win for the citizens.
And I'm gonna throw this out here also. I know it's not very popular, but in order to maintain the roads, if the state keeps cutting our funds down, and we don't have a SPLOST to build this back up, we don't have one other option if you want to have a good road, and that's to raise taxes. We don't want to do that. We do not want to have to raise taxes.
I know I'm a taxpayer, and I know most of the other taxpayers, and I don't think we got any more money left.
No.
We've got to get this SPLOST passed, and it's got to be a overwhelmingly favorable to transportation. And I think this meeting today being a public meeting, and I think the next meeting needs to be a public meeting, because people need to know because this is the best advertisement for the SPLOST. We can go out and go door to door and beg people to vote for this, but if they know what it's going to be about, I think it'd be much more favorable for a positive vote.
Jared, Miss Becky, y'all got,
No, I think we've heard great comments today from the mayors, and I like what we're talking about.
Yeah, we all got the same consensus of what needs to be done.
Yeah.
all right, we will, Mayor Weaver, how long will it take? I'm not trying to rush you. We've got till March. I think the vote will be coming March the
18th.
March the 18th.
2014.
So we've got a little bit of time, but I don't want to wait till the 11th hour to make this work. You think we ought to have another meeting in about 6 weeks to 2 months?
And you want more detail on our projects at that time?
I think we need to put some numbers down. We need to exactly.
What I want to do is that you and I discussed issues such as the area trying to get to your parking lot behind the courthouse. We've got to do to Pioneer Street and Burnt Mountain to make that interchange work because the railroad's closed. I've got to work on those projects. I'd love to do something with Burnt Mountain and Cove Road so we could have some type of roundabout in that area where cars wouldn't always congregate at that one intersection, and it needs to be improved, whether it be a roundabout or an improved stop sign. But I've got all these projects. I think I can have that done within a month.
Well, we can. I don't want to rush you. I know that.
How much time can you give me?
I'm gonna rush it, because we got to get Department of Justice clearance, we've got to get the fall regulation out. They're gonna have a work session in June, they're gonna have a meeting in June. You think you could get something to them?
I could get a list of projects it would cost be required
Just a.
at ballparks.
Not something you'll be held to, but just
Okay.
something to get.
And I could throw out, we can do the work on the Gateway project if that's a possibility to put into the SPLOST for all of Pickens County.
And may I just make one suggestion, gentlemen and ladies, is kind of keep your projects generic. You don't want to specify certain projects, but if something comes up and we can't live up to whatever we're saying to the public, that could come to.
If you get us some money, we can live up to it.
Along those lines, it's something y'all haven't talked about. Normally in these sales tax bills, we include the census for the issues of general obligation debt. And generally, that's tied to a building or that type of capital agreement. You could, but just because the language is in the ballot does not require you to issue a debt. I don't know if you would just want the language in there as a safety net, so that you could, depending on how your costs work out, borrow the money, get the stuff done, and then pay the money back within the time frame of the ballot. I don't know, it's just something else to think about.
I think as the sales tax comes in and it's earmarked for transportation, I believe it'd be worth waiting on because we're going to have to get these roads repaired. I think a 4-year, 6-year repair or maintenance program for the roads would be a great thing to do instead of trying to do it all at one time.
Let me ask this question here. If this doesn't go into a tier 1 type scenario and everybody's on the same page, once this money rolls in on the first March, April, May, once this money rolls in, do we as a group automatically get a percentage at that time? I mean,
If you don't have an intergovernmental agreement, the county can claim the first 20%, but if you had one, you would specify that everybody would get a specified amount.
everybody understand that?
Or you could also say, for example, if y'all all decided that the going down 515 is what y'all wanted to do, that you could earmark that to be the first allocation would go to that, and then afterwards.
No, Bell Avenue's got to be first.
Well, I'm just saying that as an example. I mean,
Yeah.
And then
Well,
after that.
That's another thing too, we do need to have everything prioritized,
Exactly.
what you're gonna need to do first.
Can I say something on that? This may be completely out of turn, but like we have, for our projects that we have a certain amount of money to each, like 200,000 to law enforcement, 200,000 to parks, 200,000 to roads and streets. If our check is between $9,000 and $12,000 we don't have to go directly to transportation. We can spend it in half in parks and half wherever. It's just because it's coming in. It's gonna come in over that.
If you don't have your, if all the jobs are not tier 1, tier 2, tier
Right.
scenario, she could do that.
As long as it's in the ballot.
Yeah, as long as-
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was trying to explain that, that you don't have to do that.
Well,
For the city of Nelson,
if we get this intergovernmental agreement, this would be a scary thing when county and cities work together, and we didn't really have to worry about if we got 1,000, 1,200, or 20,000 this month. It'd be nice, and we could do it, and we can stay single-minded.
Well, I will.
gotta get these paved.
Let me put this out there, Mayor. The fact of the matter is, if and when we get this passed, my crews, I don't have but 17 men in the road department now. My crew's gonna be so busy, I don't know how much I can help the other cities. So y'all just keep in mind, and I might have to even sub out a couple of roads depending on what we do in the future. So I just wanna keep that in, y'all keep that in mind. I mean, I'd love to help you, and I have,
No,
we've worked together in the past, and
Because that's when you didn't have projects. Now that you're gonna have all these projects, you will not be available to us as much, and we will be able to do that. We've paved roads inside the corporate before, city forces have. We would have to just get geared up to do that again. But I would like to see the ratio change so that we can get the 37 miles, mile and a half in Talking Rock, and the 3.2 mile, whatever the number was in Nelson. And then we'll be pretty much satisfied, except for maybe the couple roundabouts that we need to do to make the traffic flow better on Burnt Mountain and Pioneer and a few other areas, which will have these projects specific. But we need this money to come in where we're working inside the city, because I promise you, some of the roads I'm talking about cannot last another 4 years, maybe not make another year or two if this rain continues. We've crack sealed every road, Jasper. We're looking a little bit like, I'm going to call state's name, but anyway, we'd like to do away with this crack seal. We'd like to put new asphalt in. I got subdivisions that's about to break loose and totally be destroyed. I know Hunter's Ridge is facing some issues because those roads are 20 years old already.
yeah.
So all these roads need to be, and that's not even in the city, but the same age as Arbor Hill, a little older than Arbor Hill.
You got Hunter's Ridge, you got Jasper Company Road.
We got to get them. We've got to get them. And so if we could figure out some type of formula where money was going out, where the traffic was, and the roads were falling apart based on, Jerry said, what the priority was, whether it's in Jasper or Nelson, Talking Rock, or Hinton or Ludville or wherever the road was. If we can keep that in mind, I don't want to lose track of that.
Any other, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Just to tie to that, from a selfish point of view, I totally agree with making a commitment to repair those roads in Jasper, because strategically, from an economic development point of view, we need to have those roads effective and good roads so that there can be a lot of sales tax come back to this county. And I'll give a little snippet of it in Nelson. So even though it doesn't really fit the population scenario, I mean, it absolutely fits the strategic development of this county and the revenue base that we are going to growingly need to depend on if we're moving away from the state, and we need to use this money for our roads. And you know, Jasper represents the most significant part of the retail revenue that come into this county. So, I mean, I can, those all hook up to me, that's a good idea, what he's saying.
And I want to say that I did not ask the mayor to say this. I didn't tell him, give him those.
I thought he was part of your council. Phil, did you give him a date when you want to, when is my next work session? When is our next work session? I'm sorry.
June. I think he said June.
That's just the first
work
week in
session.
June.
Okay.
First Thursday.
That's right.
First
week in
Thursday in
June.
June.
First Thursday.
is the work session.
So we're looking,
So that's just.
First Thursday.
First, yeah.
we can come at you with a lot of ideas, and of course the roads are going to speak for themselves, and looking forward to it. And I'd just like to say before you finish up, Rob, is that this has been the best SPLOST meeting I've ever been to.
We didn't have to use the boxing ring.
No, this seems like a consensus, and I believe the citizens will absolutely be in favor of this.
All right, anybody, any further statements or comments? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank y'all for coming. Hope to see you all soon. Let's get this worked out and proceed on. Thank you.